I'm Lauren with Pack Hacker, and today we're going to be taking a detailed look at the Sheertex Classic Sheer Tights, which I've been testing for the last 2 weeks. Let's dive in. So to start off, I'm going to give you a little bit of context about what Sheertex is as a brand. So what they focus on is really durable tights that don't, run or tear or are a lot harder to do those things. So they kind of market themselves as like the last tights you'll ever buy. And, that kind of varies depending on your uses. So the more you use them, obviously, the more wear and tear that they're going to have. We've tested them for 2 weeks and haven't really found too many major issues. But if you do something, if you're a little bit more rougher on them, you are at a higher risk of, creating those tears. So I'll kind of walk you through any sort of issues that I've come to find with them kind of throughout my testing process. But in general, just sort of a walkthrough with the materials. So these here, you can kind of see that they have like the same amount of stretch as a regular pair of tights, but they are made with a, Sheertex says that it's a polymer that's 10 times stronger than steel. Obviously we can't test that, but it does have that durability. You can feel that it's just like, it's more sturdy than a regular pair of tights. So this is something where, if you're someone who runs your tights a lot, which I personally do, I find that like pretty much every time I wear a pair of tights, I find some sort of a rip or a tear in them, then these are gonna be something that are gonna work great for you. So especially when you're traveling, if you are, working on some sort of a project and you're having like all of these meetings kind of throughout the day, then you're going to want something that's a little bit more durable so that you're not scrambling to find something at like a drugstore last minute. So, this is really great for like that one bag travel where you might not need them a ton, but you want to have that option in your bag for when you do need them, or really if it's your sense of style to wear tights more often. I know that like some women like to wear them more often than others and just kind of like dress up an outfit, then you do have that option with that extra little bit of durability there without being, so over the top and that you need to like, or so, weak that you need to buy a bunch of different tights to accommodate them. So, with this top here, I just have the basic one, but they do have some that are like the control tops, and then they go like a little bit further down. So there are a few options just available on their site. We stuck with black because that's more so our style. I think personally, if you're going to invest in a pair of tights, then you want it to be something you're gonna wear a lot. They do have lots of patterns and styles and colors, and I think those are a lot of fun, but these do come at a pretty hefty price tag. So I know that's, a point of contention with a lot of buyers who think that maybe it's not worth it. And so that's definitely a personal preference, but something to keep in mind if you're gonna be spending a little bit more on them, it might be something that you're gonna wanna wear a little bit more often. So these ones here are fairly basic. There's a little bit of branding on the top there. You can see it's like, just says Sheertex. It's kind of like, I wouldn't say it's knitted in, but it's almost like they kind of like scored the material, it kind of feels like. So it stretches with you. You don't really ever notice. It just kind of shows there. And then I haven't found like a back or a front to these, to be quite honest with you. I find that I can just kind of grab them and put them on, and then they fit me. So this size here is a medium, so that works great for my frame, but they do have a sizing chart. For me, it was pretty true to size. So, I had seen some other reviews where people were saying something very similar, but it's kind of hard to gauge tights based off weight. However, if you do go to a drugstore and look for tights, a lot of them are also going to be marked by weight. So it's sort of a gamble either way, but personally, I found that these fit me pretty well for, my height. I'm 5'6", and so these ones here fit me fairly well for that. So looking at the actual material here, so you can see that there's a decent amount of sheer to it. I would say that they're not the most sheer that I've ever had. However, I think that with this type of material, you're gonna have an issue getting it like super, super thin. But they do have more opaque ones too. I found that with like the semi-opaque ones, I believe it was, they were like really dark. So I would say like if you want something with any sort of a sheerness to it, then this is probably, on the lighter side of where you're gonna wanna go. So I can bring the material up closer to you. So the way that they kind of explain it is that it's more like of a knit than a solid fabric. And so what I found is that it kind of does create those same pull lines that you can get in a regular pair of tights. So I'm gonna try and find one of them here. So there were a couple, they more so fell on like the top half of me, which is less of an issue to me because I, for the most part, will like more likely have that part covered than down at like the calf area, which I didn't really find any sort of an issue with the material. So if you kind of look, there it is. So it's like right up in the center there. You can see that there are sort of like material pulls. And so they note that, you know, while these are pretty durable, they can still be susceptible to, like I have a cat and like cat nails are really, really sharp. And so something like that is gonna be more likely to pull than like a dog's nail, which is a little bit on like the chunkier side. So, you know, whether that came from the cat or whether that was just regular wear and tear, you can see that it does have like a little bit of a ball of material. There's like two that are kind of close together. And even with that, I don't really feel like it's going to really impact the material. It definitely hasn't yet. And you know, I'm not exactly sure when they showed up, but even through multiple wears, you know, I haven't really had any issues with those expanding beyond that. Though I will say that that's something that on a regular pair of tights would have just automatically run for me personally. So a lot of these signals here are things that with a regular pair of tights would have led to damage a lot sooner than I'm finding with these tights here. So, you know, regardless of the longevity, I would have ruined these probably 6 times over at this point, and still they are lasting for me. So I'm having fairly good luck with them. So if you kind of look at the rest of it here, there's another thing that can kind of happen, which I'm trying to look for a good example. So right here, so you can kind of see that there's like a line, and if I bring it up really close, you can see that it's almost like the material bunches together. And so they say that there's a decent fix for that. What they say to do is pull it on either side and then just sort of like pull, snap it. And I don't know if you could hear that, but it did make a snapping noise. So if you kind of look at that after the fact, it looks pretty similar, but where it snapped, you can see it kind of went back to normal. So they do say that all of those lines that pop up, and I did find a fair amount of them popped up, can be fixed if you just sort of like pull and kind of work them out a little bit. To me, those don't really bother me. I find those on regular drugstore tights. So, you know, as long as it doesn't impact the durability, that's not a huge issue for me, though it is an aesthetic thing. So if that's something that, you know, does bother you, then that's something to keep in mind, that these, as durable as they are, do, you know, have that same sort of an issue. But I will say, like, as much as, you know, you mess with this material, you know, you can put a fair amount of strength on it. When you get it, it comes with like a little sock that you can test it with. And I had like a blast basically pulling at that sock until I could get it to break. And eventually I did get it to break, right? So these aren't like indestructible tights, but they do have that fair amount of durability. If you're someone like me who just like continuously ruins tights, I go through them so fast. And so it's nice to have these on hand because you have that extra protection, that extra strength. So I do have an example of a drugstore tight to kind of put next to it. And you can see these are a similar opacity. I would say that these are designed to be like more opaque and versus sheer, and they still end up about the same opacity as their sheer tight. So this one here, I can stick my hand in, kind of give you an example. It kind of makes that like a sticky noise. So you can hear that versus this, which is so smooth. So I would say that these are probably on the more comfortable end of tights that I've owned. These ones here, definitely, they don't have the control top, so in general, these are gonna be more comfortable anyway, but I didn't have any issues with these like slipping down me or anything. So in general, you know, these are fairly comfortable to wear for, you know, long periods of time during the day. And so in addition to that, you know, super durable material that you have, there's also the Lycra, which gives it that stretch, and the dyeability, which means that they're able to, you know, make it make it more fun, make more fun and fancy colors. There are some that are like a little bit more sparkly and things like that. So that's definitely, you have a lot of options if you do want that sort of more durable tight. The one thing that I will say is that if you do start to run into issues, these are technically considered an intimate, so you can't return them or exchange them. You can, get a replacement, if it's within their policy day. So you do have a little bit of time to wear them in and find any issues. But if you do want to return them, that's not really an option. So something to keep in mind. They do highlight themselves as a more sustainable brand, but with intimates, it's a little bit on the harder side to initiate that return process. So in general, I have enjoyed them a lot. I think that can move these ones out of the way. I think that it's definitely, a commitment to that investment, and so it might not be for everybody, but in general, if you are going to be doing a lot of traveling and you really don't want to have to worry about looking for a last-minute pair of tights, these ones here can kind of show you how they roll up in comparison to the drugstore tights. So even just like a loose roll up, they're really not that much bigger. So if you want that extra durability and that extra peace of mind, then these are a great option for that. So there you have it, the Sheertex Classic Sheer Tights. Thanks for keeping it here at Pack Hacker, your guide to smarter travel, and we'll see you in the next one.